Welcome to week 6 of EX 201 Excavation 2. I want to talk about this 1926 652 requirements for protective systems. And I'm going to kind of use, I'm going to use the week 6, I believe it is, week 6 assignment as a little bit of a guide for us to go through this thing. It's terrible when you had to sit through me just reading what you can obviously see, but we're going to do it anyway. And so again, we're talking about this is section 652, which is requirements for protective systems. There is a section 651, which is specific excavation requirements, which you can find in this module. You'll see, you can find that. And then there's also the famous 650, which is the scope, application, and definitions there. The scope is of 650 applies to all open excavations in the Earth's surface. Definitions are also in section 650, and you have access to those. That's probably 20 or so in there, and they range from accepted engineering practices to stable rock and all in between there. It would be good to know those. I don't think they're going to show up that much on any of the tests, but anyway, back to the week 6 assignment, and we're going to focus on 652, which are the protective systems. In your assignment, your first question says, what does this rule say? When I say, what does this rule say, I'm talking about 652. That's the section we're talking about, and that's the requirements for a protective system. What does that rule say in general about employee protection, and what are the exceptions noted to this general statement? Well, let's look up here. Look here at this little A. What does it say? Protection of employees in excavation. That's what this is all about. And to start with, each employee in an excavation shall be protected from cave-ins by an adequate protection system designed in accordance with paragraph B. Look, let's see if we can wiggle down here to B. That's the paragraph they're talking about, and that is the design of sloping and benching. Okay, R, C. Let's wiggle down a little further, see if I can find that. Bed. I'm gonna find it. I know what it is. I'd just like to show it to you. There it is. And C of that B that it was talking about is the design of support systems, shield systems, and other protective systems. So B is about digging the hole and sloping and benching, right? That's actual digging a hole in the ground. Okay, now C is about the design of like vertical hydraulic aluminum shoring, about a trench shield. So those are the first two things what we get knocked out. Now, pushing my luck, kind of strumming around. If I get lost in an OSHA rule, I don't know if I'll ever come up for air. There were that B right there. And let's get back to the very beginning again. Each employee in an excavation shall be protected from cave-ins by adequate protection system of designs in accordance with those two paragraphs, B and C, that we just got through talking about. One's for the mechanical stuff, one's for the digging stuff. Okay. Unless in this section, except when excavations are made entirely in stable rock, or excavations are less than 5 feet in depth, and Examination of the ground by a competent person provides no indication of a potential cave-in. Okay. Protective systems shall have the capacity to resist without failure all loads that are intended or could reasonably be expected to be applied or transmitted to the system. What are we talking about when we say loads? Pressure. How much? Well, not pressure so much as force. We're in these shields and shoring. They are all based on what's called static physics. In other words, the sum of all the forces to remain static or stationary, the sum of all forces need to equal zero. In other words, nothing should move. The dirt shouldn't fall in and the shield shouldn't cave in. Okay, that's the goal right there. That's the opposite of the other physics is dynamic. When a freight train hits a car that's running going across the tracks, that's dynamic physics. That sum of forces ain't going to be zero. It's going to be a train hitting a car, and that's going to have some force. So that's just a start. And by the way, if you want to get more into physics of this, I believe it's the chapter 2 in your textbook, which is kind of basic physics. It just talks about forces on different objects from different directions, and it's all about static. We're not going to have any questions over that. Don't expect you to know it, but it might be something you want to take a look at. Okay. Subsection 2 in the rules imply designated minimum resistance to load that are applied or transmitted to the system. What is that minimum? I think I just read it. Let's see. Excavation. No, wait a minute. Personal prize, design sloping. Can I find it? Okay, I will find it. Shall have the capacity to resist. Right here it is. Answer to that. See, that's your second question. It says in subsection 2, right here, we lucked out. The rule imply a designated minimum resistance. Well, the designated minimum resistance, let's read this. Lost it. Protective systems should have the capacity to resist without failure all loads that are intended or could reasonably be expected to be applied or transmitted to the system. In other words, they need to hold up. Okay, now paragraph B. Paragraph B. Oh, there it is. The question is paragraph B, design of sloping and benching systems. The employer is required to configure slopes or benching systems in accordance with the requirements of paragraphs B1, B2, B3, or B4, B1 through B4. Can you find and describe these four options? Now that's a question. Here they are, right here. Design of sloping and benching. The slopes and configurations of sloping and benching systems shall be selected in construction by the employer or his designee and shall be in accordance with requirements of paragraph B1 or in the alternative paragraph B2 or in the alternative paragraph B3 or in the alternative paragraph B4 as followed. With these options. Now, before we get there, I just want to show you something about B1 through B4 means something. Allow me, please. I know your time is valuable, and mine's not really that valuable. But I just want to show you these B1s and stuff, what they're about. And I stuck it on this thing. Oh, here we are, right here. This is, let's see, This is 1926 652 option 1, allowable configurations and slopes. So B1 is right here. Excavations shall be sloped at an angle not steeper than 1 1/2 horizontal. That's a 1 1/2 to 1 in it. That's a Class C soil or something like that. So that's what those B1s, B2s, B3s, B4s are telling you how to slope it. Now I'm going to go back, and trust me, we could spend a while on that. What we're just leaving. I want to go on back up here to the top. I hope I don't bounce this around too much, but I do kind of want to move through this. Number 4, 1926 652 requirements for protective systems is essentially broken down into two main sections, paragraph B and paragraph C. Okay, paragraph B right here, that's designs for sloping and benching. And where did I lose it? Required protection broken down to two sections. Paragraph C. What is the main topic of paragraph B? What is the main topic of paragraph C? We just talked about it. B is sloping and benching, and oh no, the C is the mechanical, where it's talking about shielding and sloping. I'll see if I'll spend a little time looking for it. There it is. C is about design of support system, shield system, and other protective systems. Now, question 5 says, after identifying the topic paragraph B, discuss the 4 options for the design of sloping and benching. So you can discuss them, and they will be those 4 that we just talked about, I think. Remember the B1, B2? Now, let me read it again. After identifying the topic of paragraph B, discuss the 4 options for the design of sloping and benching. Okay, so I got to get back to paragraph B, I think. Design of sloping and benching. Here's where it discusses it a little bit. The slopes and configurations of sloping and benching systems shall be selected and constructed by the employer or his designee and shall be in accordance with the requirements of paragraph B1 through B4 with these options. And is that what it asks us about? Let me go back and see down to main B in section 5. After identifying topic B, just has 4 options, and here they are. Here's option 1. Allowable configurations and slopes. Excavations shall be sloped at an angle not steeper than 1 1/2. We read that back in just a few minutes ago to 1 1/2 to 1, or 34 degrees, and slope specified in paragraph B1I of this section shall be excavated to form configurations that are in accordance with the slope shown for a type C soil, which is 1 1/2 to 1, and can be found in Appendix B to this subpart. Option 2, blah, blah, blah. So option 2 under paragraph C states design of support systems, shell systems, or other protective systems that are drawn from manufacturer's tabulated data shall be in accordance with all specifications, recommendations, and limitations issued or made by the manufacturer. What must the employer do prior to deviating from the manufacturer's tabulated data? Okay, I know what he must do. He must go to the manufacturer and get written permission to either weld on it, cut on it, alter it in any fashion or form. If not, he's going to be in a whole lot of deep stuff. So I don't know if I want to find where that is. So we talked about slope, shall be in, all right. Option 3, designs using other tabulated data or designs of sloping or benching systems shall be selected from and be in accordance with the tabulated data such as tables and charts. I don't guess you know what tabulated data is. Well, by now you might, because we're going to have it here probably in this week 6. I think this is all coming from week 6. In written form shall include identification of parameters that affect the selection of a sloping and benching system and the identification of the limits of use to the data. Now, 7, option 2 under paragraph C states design of support systems, shield systems, or other protective systems that are drawn from manufacturers' tabulated data shall be in accordance with all specifications, recommendations, and limitations issued or made by the manufacturer. What must the employer do prior to deviating? I think I just said that. He's got to go to the manufacturer and say, this is what I want to do, draw it up for him, and then the manufacturer has to approve it in writing. Now, that's not all. Identification of the parameters that affect the selection of a sloping and benching system drawn from such data. Identification. Wait, there's just a little bit more. Explanatory information as may be necessary to aid the user in making correct selection of the system from that data. Now, no, that's just continued. At least this is you got to give something to the Secretary of Labor here, I think. At least one copy of the tabulated data which identifies the registered professional engineer who approved the data shall be maintained at the job site during construction of the protective system. After that time, the data may be stored off the job site, but a copy of the data shall be made available to the Secretary. And I've always thought that was the Secretary of Labor, but I'm not sure what Secretary. Somebody for sure. And then option 4, designed by registered professional engineers, sloping and benching systems not utilizing option 1 or option 2 or option 3 under paragraph B of this section shall be approved by a registered professional engineer, and design shall be written in written form. The magnitude of the slope that was determined to be safe for the particular project. Now that was 7, and that's all 7 questions, and I know I kind of flew through it, but you know this video will be there if you want to go back through it. But we touched on what does the rule say, and subsection 2, the rules imply designated minimum resistance, which is, you know, got to bear the load. So shouldn't have any problem. If you do, you know my number. Give me a call, and we'll talk to you later. I just did.